Yeah, he doesn't.
Yeah, well, that's important. Keep him honest. Let's talk about politics. Who do you guys like?
I'm out of here.
Who do you like in the election, or do you have no opinion? Bob, you want to go first?
Yes, I like Obama, and I just don't see how we really need him in this country. We need him in the world, and he's going to make mistakes, and he'll be criticized for one thing or another. That's normal. But he really is what we need at this point, no matter what the other side says and all that spin and all that jazz that they give. It's a shame because, you know, the one thing I hope with this whole thing is that everybody behaves in a dignified way and doesn't stoop too low to try and take out the other person, because it just reflects badly on them. That's all I would hope, and may the best man win, but do it with dignity.
Al?
Well, you got to alter that best man winning thing.
You think the country will be okay
well,
either way?
There's three men and one woman.
Oh, well, right. Well, I think he's talking about the top of the ticket. Yeah. But do you think the country will be okay either way, or?
I don't know. I of course think about it, talk about it. I don't. I've stayed away from my opinions in politics. I've always stayed away from it. It just. I have my beliefs, and I think that we need whatever it's being promulgated now today in terms of change, and I'm certainly with Bob on that, and I think that for me the Democrats and Obama can deliver it, and I think that it's partially about how what's going on in the world and how we're perceived, and all the things that all the tentacles something like this has. It isn't. It's there's something. It's sort of like opening a window. It's kind of. It feels that way to me anyway. You never know how things turn out, but it feels like it's time for a new thing.
Serious question for either of you, because you've probably thought about this. Why does it seem that creative people are all tilted leftward politically? So few name celebrities willing to come out on the right, the small r, right side of a cause as opposed to the left.
Well, I think that being an artist, you identify more with a more humane, a gentler look at things. And I think that if you want to compare the Republicans to the Democrats have that, just like I say, may the best man win. And try and do it with dignity as opposed to, everybody forgets and says things that they contradict themselves on. But somehow you feel with the Republicans, they grab it, they take it, they steal it. They don't do it in a gentle way. This is what I've seen. This is what I feel. So that's all I say, is that everybody should just do it with dignity with each other, because if they do, it really will. It's better for all of us. Because then people get cynical about politicians, that they change what they said one thing, now they're going to do this, and if they try to maintain that dignity and stick to what they say, for better or for worse, people respect that and admit when they're wrong, and say, look, I made a mistake. Most importantly, I made a mistake. That's it. I think that helps a lot.
Back to the two of you. When you look out at the work that you know is out there, you read scripts, you read plays, you know what happens when you get together, you know what happens when a camera's rolling in a room with the two of you. Is there a piece of work out there that you've talked about doing, something you have in your mind, something you hope is created that you can hang in the Metropolitan Museum at the end of your careers, that you did together, you could hang in the Louvre in Paris as a piece of art and say, we did this? Is there any holy grail out there for the two of you, creatively?
No. Actors sort of, it's when Bob directs too, I think Bob is a great director also. And I think that when you find material that you want to do, but as an actor, you're sort of always in search of a role. that's, naturally you always think that something's going to come along that's going to allow you that freedom to go deeply into your own creative imagination. And it happens very rarely, so you sort of live in a kind of constant pursuit of that thing. You never know where it's going to come. Sometimes it's sort of like love. You don't know when it's going to happen, but you keep an eye out for it. But you are at the mercy of the role, really. And of course, Shakespeare is there, and there's many roles in Shakespeare. But then it's this: where do you go do it? It requires a lot of components in order to do these things. You just don't say, "Well, I'm going to go play." It's the very nature of life. Where is your life that dictates what you're going to do, where you're living, who has the similar interest to you in that area. Sometimes it's more, things are more accessible, and then sometimes they're not. I mean, it just depends on. If you get a steady gig like at Saturday Night Live, you keep going, and then, which I thought you were terrific. By the way, I saw you on it. You did some beautiful stuff. You're so funny.
I just studied tapes of Mr. De Niro up here.
So inventive, both of you. I mean, but I think that if you like Sid Caesar, if we remember Sid Caesar, I think everybody should get a kind of a re-showing of the Sid Caesar shows just to see what he did. But it was on for, I think it was 10 years, was it? I don't know. But there were opportunities with Jackie Gleason also, opportunities each week. They had a character, they did it, and they spin off the next week. And Sid Caesar had these incredible things that would happen. So he had an environment that was, I heard he was 94 recently, or 90 or something. Yeah. I had the good fortune of being on an airplane with him once. It was great to talk to him. And naturally, you get to meet Sid Caesar, and you don't ask him the things you want to ask him. Right. You sort of talk about other
kind of like meeting Al Pacino.
Oh yeah, right. But anyway, I'm sort of this whole idea of having an environment to do things in that allow for that. I mean, because there's just so much reading you can do, and scripts sort of don't fall out of the sky, and you go through your phases. But I think both Bob and I both feel that there's things out there yet to do that could make it to a certain artistic level, if you want.
So when you pick up a Glengarry or a Godfather or a Goodfellas, you must know, and maybe you'll know it when you see it. Maybe there's a young writer out there who's got you in mind.
Yeah.
Well, it's a complicated process because sometimes things you commit to them and they're not in the best, they're good, and they're basically good, and you've got to then improve them, and you don't know where it's going to go. That's the whole point. You're with the people you respect and care about, and you know it's going to, wherever you're going to go, it's going to be interesting and special.
That takes guts, though.
Yeah, and that's sometimes how you have to go into things.
What if it doesn't work?
There's no such thing as not working other than the financial part of it, which of course is an important part on the one hand, but it's more important to make it work for what it is, bearing in mind all the financial sides of it, whether it will be received by enough people to, hate to say this, will pay for itself, but there is that. But I think it's there are movies that can do all those and be financially rewarding enough to make it happen, and to so that people will take a chance to do another one.
I like what Paul Newman said. Paul Newman said about working. He would work if he'd work every 5 years if he just waited for the thing that struck him. So, meanwhile, what do? So you try to find things that maybe you can, they can somehow get, by everybody involved, somewhat be elevated, or you can get the opportunities. But you also learn about things when you do these things, when you do different projects. But most of the time, it's very rare that something comes along that you feel appetite for, a real appetite. Say, I really have a desire to do this. But there's a lot to go. I'm lucky enough to have a desire to do things on stage. So I've always had the stage theater to go to, and that served me a lot, because when I was, between movies and didn't have anything, I tried to get something, muster something up on the stage, and it really was very. It was very helpful to me, because it helped me to make certain decisions that I wouldn't have made. I would have taken parts that I really shouldn't have taken early on in my career, had I not the theater to go to, because it's just so long you can go without working, without doing that thing,
keeping your hands
whatever
on.
That is.
Yeah.
If you play a clarinet, you should be playing the clarinet, I think.
Is it an unfair question to ask guys in your line of work? I'll ask it anyway. Who do you see coming up? Who do you like? Who do you look for? Whose movies do you go see? Who are you cheering for?
Well, you never know when you're going to see it. Usually, they all come out at the end of the year, right? And the end of the year, they wait for December, and 400 films come out.
That's right.
For Oscars and stuff. So you wish they would spread them out a little bit more. But there's a lot of great people coming up. I mean, I'm stunned by at least by the movie acting I see.
Do you feel good about the industry? A lot of people are, say the movie business, reached its peak in whatever name your era. Do you feel good about the industry?
Well, I think that there are more movies, independent films now than there were before.
Yeah.
I remember when we were starting, there were very few independent movies. I worked with Brian De Palma, was an independent. I don't know if you did. I was thinking of Robert Downey Sr., Downey Jr.'s father. Yeah. He did some very good movies. And there were others, but not the way it is today. So that's a good thing for creative people.
Dog Day Afternoon today would be an independent film. The studio wouldn't make a Dog Day Afternoon, and at that time Warner Brothers made it. So it has changed in that respect, and sometimes it's tougher for the independent films. I just heard a good thing about Mickey Rourke, his movie and his acting and his performance in this movie he's done. Again, an independent film by a very good filmmaker.
Yeah.
So these things pop up, and but they usually don't have the finances, right? Because movies are expensive sometimes. I mean, it requires a lot of people, a lot of ingenuity and work, and sometimes they don't have the funding, so you can feel it in the picture. Sometimes it's worthwhile.
I just got the evil eye. I got two more questions. And I'll
but
go
there are a
easy.
lot of young actors. I mean, a lot of great young actors. Ryan Gosling, that's just the top of my head.
Yeah.
Leonardo DiCaprio, Sean Penn, though he's older.
Johnny
Depp, Matt Damon,
Daniel Day-Lewis.
Daniel Day-Lewis, wonderful. He was in There Will Be Blood. I mean, he was great.
Oh my God,
the movie was just
what a great
movie. I'm not thinking of other people. They're just a lot of wonderful actors.
But you know them when you see them.
Yeah.
How much news do you guys watch? And what do you make of the national conversation? Are you upset by it? The state of our discourse? The arguments?
Well, like I was saying, I'm upset by some of the pettiness of the politicians, and sometimes the media sort of encouraging that, because it encourages a petty fight. He said this, he said that. Obama said this about what McCain said or Palin. It's like a joke. What are we concentrating on? It's like, let's talk about real issues and real important stuff. Let's not get down to those petty, silly levels.
It does get you off the issues.
I mean, everybody gets cynical. Then you say, I don't care if it's Democrat or Republican. I don't want to be, nobody's, And Obama is trying to stay above that and just, be a real person.
And it's screen time, it's all about, keep the thing going, because that's screen time. So that's part of it. Things get a little diffused. because you got to keep the television machine going. So you say things and talk, and by very articulate people, I must say. I mean, it's interesting what they say and stuff, but then you run out of things, so you make things up more or less, and that's the way it goes, but that's the nature of our world. So the idea is to, how do you sort of deal with it and allow it to be as good as it can be. You know, it's a process, and I think we're doing all right with that.
Last question.